Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the National School District Governing Board. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Lucero,
Present.
Ms. Gates,
Present.
Ms. Sarmiento, absent. Ms. Betancourt Castañeda,
Present.
Ms. Dalla,
Present.
thank you.
Public communications. Public communications provides the public with an opportunity to address the board regarding an item on the agenda or other topic. Anyone wishing to address the board shall submit a request for oral communications card. Cards are available near the entrance to the boardroom and are to be submitted to the recording secretary. A member of the public who wishes to address the board on any such matters are limited to 3 minutes for one matter, up to a maximum of 5 minutes for all matters. There shall be a limit of 20 minutes for any matter unless such time limit is waived by a majority vote of the board. No board action will be taken.
We have no public speakers.
Thank you. Item 11 is to accept the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I motion to accept the agenda.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Betancourt Castañeda and a second by Ms. Gates. Please vote.
Item passes unanimously.
Item 12 is to approve the consent agenda routine items of business. At this time, I have staff request to pull 2 items from the consent agenda. The first item will be item 12.A1 and will be updated and brought back at a later date. And the second item is item 12.C1, and it needs to be pulled and approved separately with the following correction. Daniela Butler should be listed as a speech and language pathologist, not language arts specialist. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda with these items pulled?
I make the motion to accept the agenda with the items pulled.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. I have a motion by Ms. Betancourt Castañeda and a second by Ms. Lucero. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes.
Okay, now we will vote on we'll have a separate vote for 12.C1 with the stated correction of the title. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Gates and a second by Ms. Betancourt Castañeda to correct the speech and language pathologist to language arts specialist. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 13, policies, regulations, bylaws. We have a discussion of existing board policy 0415, which is equity. Okay, on this resolution, this policy is to ensure a welcoming and inclusive district. The board will be revisiting an existing board policy and take any potential updates. Is there any discussion on this?
Yes, this is that.
Yes, Mrs. Sutter?
There was a suggestion to change the symbolism of equity on the vision. So I don't know if it was adopted or not.
Okay.
Yes, so we did change the people on the vision posters to a heart, the heart we used last year, and we're in the process of printing those for the new school year. They'll be replaced in all of the places we have the posters.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? Dr. Brady?
Yes, so in light of the recent events and the discussion throughout the county and school districts, the incident that happened at a neighboring school district, many boards are talking about implementing this board policy that was suggested a few years back. National School District has had this board policy 0415 on equity since 2018. We just thought that since our board president did speak in Coronado to the board, just having the opportunity to have you look at it, we do have 2 new board members, have any opportunity for potential input, would be a good opportunity to just reaffirm our commitment to equity in the National School District. So this is just for discussion, and next board meeting we'll be bringing it back for approval, just with some updates. On the staff side, we did notice there were some references to the county, and the county has a similar policy. And we're not sure how that got mixed in with our policy as posted. So we did remove all reference to County Office of Education and just have it be district specific. So that's the main crux of the changes. But this clean copy that you're seeing in front of you is as is how we would be presenting it for adoption.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Gates?
I'm thankful for it. We have a beautiful community. And part of what makes our community beautiful is that we are not all alike. We bring so much to the table because we've got some of those families who have been here forever, who are welcoming the families who are brand new. And all of that is a gift that National City offers in a way that a lot of places don't. And we also have everything from our college grads to those who have arrived here and did not have the opportunity for the same level of education. We just have so much here. But that does turn around and mean that we as a board and we as a school district have to be looking at what brings us to that table in a manner that is respectful to all, stabilizing for everybody. So I'm very thankful that we had done this. I know that I've asked before, Dr. Brady, about what some of our policies look like, but not just the policies, but what are the practicals? Because it's not a matter, we can say whatever we want to say and have whatever we want to have on paper. But if we aren't actually putting hands and feet to what we have on a piece of paper, then what good is that? And so, whether it comes with Dr. Hernandez and the HR department, whether it comes with Dr. Kraft and what's being taught in the classroom, and your oversight, the way that Mr. Avanesian spends that, signs the checks, which I know we really don't sign the checks anymore, but all of it. So we have to do this right, and we have to do this well. And we have to remember that it's a matter of honoring. I think that's what equity is supposed to be about, is it's honoring so that everyone has the opportunity that they can, that they have the right to, and part of that is seeing that the people who speak into their life, they need to look like them, sound like them, model like them, feel like them, so that it feels safe to be at our schools. I mean, there's just so much that goes into this, and I don't want to shy away from acknowledging the inequities that are built into our systems. and that we are working hard to get around. So, Ms. Dalla, thank you for bringing this to the table again, honestly.
It's unfortunate that we need to bring it back, but here it is. Ms. Betancourt Castaneda?
Yes, thank you. Can we go into what kind of trainings we're gonna be providing, not just to staff, but to families and our students? Because it is very apparent that it's not always getting to our students. And the common thing I keep hearing is, well, the student didn't know. Well, we just need to make sure our students do know. Because it's disheartening to know that it's something that they're lacking because of us parents not teaching our children or not communicating with them. Or maybe they don't have that, the ability to have that, spoken about at home. So what kind of training, I would like to see for all, not just our staff, not, it needs to be very inclusive of everybody in our community.
Dr. Brady?
So I'll start, but I know Dr. Kraft is ready to answer a few additional things. But to Trustee Gates, when you mentioned how is this connected to practice, for example, number 5 on page 31 of your binder, adopting curriculum and instructional materials that accurately reflect the diversity among student groups. So just this year, a few months ago, we purchased 10 books on Asian culture during Asian Pacific Heritage Month to make sure that we were well represented in our libraries for our Asian population here in National School District. I think we could probably do a better job when we do our presentations of referencing the board policy. I think we do a lot of those presentations that are reflective of our board policy, but through the fresh eyes of 2 new board members, maybe when we do our board presentations, we can do a better job pulling it back to the policy so you can see those connections a little more clearly. And it would be clear for our community as well, so they can see the implementation of our policy. So we'll try to do that a little bit more as a team. The second question you asked about, what is the training involved? We do a lot with PBIS, as you've heard. All of our schools are being recognized by the California Coalition. We have put in a presentation for CSVA to share that all the work we're doing around positive behaviors and intervention supports, restorative practices. We are also put in for a Golden Bell. We think it's worthy of replicating, so we want to spotlight it. And just last week, I sent an email to our PACER. We have a new PACER, and I know that you're also going through the delegates to try to see if we can get CSBA to come and bring people here to see the practices that we're doing. That comes with extensive training on both the staff side and the student side. So I would say the crux of the work we're doing around equity is through that lens, but I'll let Dr. Kraft talk a little bit more about other trainings that they have in terms of equity and equitable practices.
Well, you mentioned PBIS as well as restorative practices. In addition to that, we have the Sanford Harmony curriculum, and our counselors do what we call Tier 1 push-in, and they cover 4 key areas, and 2 of those areas focus on inclusion and diversity, and what does that mean, and how do we practice that, and how do we put it into play in real life. And there are the circles and the discussions around that are really focused on having those conversations. And so in addition to that, we're looking at diversity training. I just actually received something for our staff to start looking at what does that actually mean when we talk about diversity training and culturally responsive pedagogy.
Thank you. Any, yes, Ms. Sarraga?
Just a final comment on that. I think I mentioned it like probably a couple of board meetings before about not only the materials that is going to be implemented on the next school year and follow up on that, and also that to honor what we have as a diverse community, but also awareness on learning disabilities among these components. So hopefully we can include it on that, and we've been asking that for several years now. So hopefully that finally came true, and we have not only Asian heritage, but also awareness on that among all the families and on the teacher level, so we can do that at least on a week for awareness.
Ms. Gates?
I absolutely will back up Ms. Lizardo on that one, because our students learning more about different abilities makes them actually more decent individuals themselves. And when you have friends who don't do everything the same way you do, it teaches a level of tolerance that is vital. So for instance, cross-class PE is a beautiful thing. I'll just put it out there. But there are some things that I am wondering about when it comes to the equitable part. Because when we talk about equity, and remembering that equity does not mean equal, it's not the same thing, is bringing people to a level of parity from which they can jump. So for some of our students, that definitely means, and I know that we have some things structured into class, I do, but what are we doing, for instance, to help students when it comes to maybe the extra tutoring that they may need in order to get to that same jumping off place that some of those around them have. Also, for instance, uniforms. Uniforms can be a beautiful place for that. Everyone is kind of on that same foot, but they can also be the thing that keeps a child, that's hard for a child, because having clean uniforms or having enough uniforms can actually be something that separates them. I remember being in a third grade classroom and having a child over here at Las Palmas whose shirt was on inside out, and asking him if he knew. And he said, yes, but it's Thursday and I only have 2 shirts and mommy can't wash them until Saturday. So he basically was switching shirts inside out and then choosing the cleanest side for the last day of the school week. So equity is an economic thing as well. And so what do we do? And I know that we can't fix all things, I know that. But as much as in us lies, what can we be doing in the practical?
So are there any recommendations to change the language of our board policy? Or we discussed it and we'd like to leave it the way it is, or what are the recommendations?
Yeah, I just suggested the symbolism because people sometimes is more visual than reader. So when you visualize, that means they create the idea that we include it. So that's why I recommend, I suggested to include that language in there. Other than that, I think it's okay.
Am I allowed to say that I kind of want to marinate for a little bit?
Sure.
I'd like just a little bit more time to sit with it, and actually to be able to do a little looking and see what.
Sure, we can bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not trying to procrastinate or just push off, but I want to. It's too important.
Okay, sure, we can bring it back. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
We'll bring it back as a, not for,
No, we'll bring it back
For
as
additional
discussion
discussion.
again, yes, additional discussion. Or we can bring it back as a first reading if you want to call in the recommendations. I mean,
The first reading would be
the
great.
first reading, if you let the superintendent know what it is that we want to include in here, then we can bring it back as a first reading and discuss it, and either after that adopt it or change it again.
And like I said, it's not necessarily that I know that there's something in there that I want to change. I just kind of want to sit with it and think about it and feel that we're doing we're putting the right words to our community.
Sure, this is Very important and too important, like you said. Thank you. Item 14, we have a presentation and a discussion on board meeting streaming options. Dr. Brady?
Yes, so tonight we're excited to share some ideas with you regarding continuing to stream our board meetings for the public. We've had a lot of people join our meetings virtually, and although we're back in person and we do have an opportunity for an audience, some people do wish to watch the meeting from the comfort of their own home, maybe making dinner with their families. But there's a lot of information that the board discusses and shares that would be great. And there also could be recorded, and if you couldn't watch it in real time, you could watch it after and get the information. So this time I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Avanesians, and he is going to introduce to you our presenter. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So tonight we have Bryan Lucero. He's our electronic systems technician. He's been streaming these meetings since we asked him to. They've proven to be pretty popular, so we want to continue streaming these meetings regardless of the conditions. Bryan has a couple options tonight on how we can move forward with the most easiest and simplest and cost-effective way to stream these meetings in a high-quality manner. So, Bryan? Bryan's setting up the camera for his presentation.
Members of staff and the public have expressed that they hope the streaming option will continue once the board resumes in-person meetings. This presentation will provide options and next steps for board consideration of virtual streaming. So we have two main options. Our first option would be to do everything in-house, and our second option would be to go through a third-party company like Swagger Productions. Swagger Productions is a hands-free streaming company. They dedicate themselves to doing streams for local, state, and federal government. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they do the live streaming for the National Cities Council, I believe, and I think Chula Vista and Coronado School District as well. So a few key points to make would be if we do everything in-house, it would be much more cost effective. It would also require minimum training and maintenance. And another key point would be that we would have full control of our over our own production. So meaning that we can do any sort of adjustments or anything that we would like to add or take out can be done very quickly. So to go over a couple things with like Swagger would be it would be a much more expensive option. It would also have a recurring annual cost because it is a service. Like I mentioned, it is a hand-free service company. So meaning that we don't have to do anything. They would take care of everything, and they would have another thing to mention with that would be that we wouldn't have complete control over our own production like if we were to do everything in-house. It would be a little bit more limited, and it would be it wouldn't be as fluent as compared to doing it ourselves. Also, there's a set amount of meetings per package, which means that you get like a set amount of like a number, like a set number of meetings that we can live stream, or like a set amount of hours, compared to if we do it like internally, we stream on our own schedule whenever we need to. If we have like an emergency like board meeting or something, we don't have to let someone know or count on someone else. And also, like I just mentioned, it requires a minimum of a 24-hour notice for unscheduled meetings. So our recommended solution would be to do everything in-house, of course, and the total cost of doing everything in-house would be $15,471. I do want to mention that we did get a proposal, Joe himself got a proposal from Swagger Production, and it is 3 times the cost of compared to doing it in-house. It comes out roughly about $47,000. So there is like a big difference in the initial investment. And also the second thing to keep in mind would be the annual cost, which is about close to 13,000 if I'm not mistaken, which is about the same cost of the initial cost of doing it in-house. And I also want to point out real quick that these two pictures that we're looking at real quickly is on the first one, that would be the joystick controller, and those would be the cameras that we would be using. We would get about 3 to 4 of them, and they would be ceiling mounted. The point of going this direction would be to kind of stay out of the way, and everything would be wired into like the room next door, and so we would be out of the way, and this room could be filled with audience. And as you can see on the second one on the right side, that's the AV mixer where all the cameras would be connected to, and that's what we would be using to stream.
So that 15,000, that's for the cost of equipment, that's not for the cost of the personnel?
So the cost, that's the cost of the equipment, and that's the cost of the installation. The cost of the personnel would be like our staff here. So that would be
Separate.
me, it would be like Vanessa, Jocelyn, the IT team, anybody who's going to be working on the live stream, that they would be the staff behind our solution.
Is this the equipment that we would be purchasing, is it the same or comparable to what the company uses?
Yes, it's very similar, and by very similar I mean like it's just maybe like a different brand, but it's the same equipment. It's the same, like the things do the same. The main difference is that the company would go a direction where they can set up on a long term, and they would never have to move it. So it's much more expensive equipment compared to doing it in-house and knowing that it's just something like, it's something simple. It would be just a very small like setup, like compared to doing it like to a company.
So if we were to do it in-house, then we wouldn't be limited to just board meetings, we can use it for other committees and so on. If we would do it externally, then we would be kind of only for board meetings because it's gonna be so expensive to add. I can imagine adding additional meetings, it doesn't have a cost, but I'm sure there's additional costs associated to
Yes.
adding additional meetings.
There is.
So there would be a much more definite cost savings and also the more utilization
Mhm.
if we kept it in-house.
Yes, and the like how you were saying, with this device, the great thing about it is that we can just disconnect it and we can take it to another school, another location, and we can use it to its full potential in another location. We're not like, it's not just to this board meeting. Compared to if we do it with a company, it would be kind of like how you see that big black metal box in the back corner. It would be something like that, where it's there and it's
Stationary.
it's not moving. So yes, that's a very great point. So here's a quick video example of what it would look like once we get our solution going. And also, just a quick mention, here's a picture of what the setup would look like. It's, as you can see, it's very simple and it's like very straightforward. So let's click on to this. Okay, so I'm gonna go over this video like very like quick and it's gonna be super brief. So a quick something I want to point out is that here they have like a title screen. How they mention, the county school board. We can do that, and then they follow up with presenting all the board members and presenting the cabinet and everybody that's going to be on the stream. Which is also something that we can do ourselves. So here I just want to point out.
To the new executive director of the foundation, but ultimately because I'm here.
So as you can see, there's a camera, and it's kind of like zoomed in on her, and then how it just cuts to the next person speaking. it would be the same transitions, it would be like the same thing.
The golden apple.
As you can see, they also provide like banners, like presenting like the person speaking, like with the name and the title. That's something that we can do here as well.
So we would have multiple cameras set up and you guys would be doing the cutting and editing to be able to, when we post it on our website, that the speaker would then be highlighted.
Yes, so we would have, I would say, about 4 cameras. One would go in the rear to face the audience, and then one would be placed either on that wall or on this wall to face the podium, and then 2 on the rear, 2 that would always be pretty much facing like the whole like board, and then one would be focusing on like going like person to person.
Spotlight, right?
Yes, like I will give you an example.
Each year, 5 teachers are selected and named golden apple teachers, and they put you off.
So right here
Statement
is
recorded spring break. Board member
it's
Taylor,
on her.
will please read.
And then it's going to transition onto
We are
like the wide angle to see everybody. And when the next person starts speaking, they use this angle as a transition screen to transition to the next person speaking, which is what we would be doing. It would look the same.
To work well together, we must.
What kind of
respect the proper
time would this add to your day?
Just about the time that I'm here. That's about it, really.
Yeah, so just to clarify, because I know you mentioned that there wouldn't be post-production, right? This would be happening live.
Yes.
So we wouldn't be, right, whatever you see, the banners, they're happening in real time with this equipment. So we're not gonna go back and add things later to a meeting that was streamed live. It would be, whatever you see there is live and it would stay as is for transparency in the Brown Act and all of that.
So that was what I was questioning about, if cutting, editing and all that, so that's not even gonna need to be done.
So once we start the live stream, there's like an auto feature where it just records, and then when we end the live stream, it saves like the whole thing as one whole thing, and that gets posted. It doesn't get edited, it doesn't get changed or anything.
Does it have the capability of doing subtitles?
YouTube does that itself. YouTube has the capability of doing that. You can enable closed caption. And I actually want to mention that since you're mentioning closed caption, if you want closed caption through Swagit, it's an additional like $3,000 or something like that, or I think about double that.
That would be another question that I have. Is there a reason to have essentially the buffer of that extra party of Swagit or whoever else? Like why, what would be the benefit to having somebody else?
Well, personally, I don't see a benefit to it. I think the best thing you can say about it is that it's hands-free. Like, and that depends on the person. Like, if the person wants it to be hands-free, then like perfect. It's a perfect solution. But I mean, I've been doing this. Like, I'm very familiar with all this equipment. I'm very familiar with live streaming and stuff like that. So it comes very natural to me to do this, and it would come very natural to me to teach other people how to do this. So it would be just, in my opinion, a much better option too.
So I think it would make sense if we didn't have somebody like him here that would have difficulties if, being able to run the whole system and so on. In my opinion, you seem very confident, and I would not, recommend us to do, bring someone else in. If we didn't have somebody in the capacity, then of course, absolutely bring someone in, because we want to make sure that we're giving the audience and those that are, wanting to be able to participate in our meetings, the ability to do so without all the glitches and so on with somebody who doesn't have that expertise. But I think that would be the only drawback of having someone else come in and do it, versus in-house, because I'm you speak very, very confident with it, and there is no benefit from us bringing someone else in.
That's what I was wondering, because it seems like you said there are a lot of other organizations doing this, and so why would
They may not have the ability in-house, as in a person like
Dr.
Yeah.
Brady?
Yes, so that's exactly what I was going to say. We originally started this process by talking with our technology team. And our technology team did start, like he mentioned, Mr. Ferris did get a quote from Swagit because we don't have the expertise in audiovisual in our technology team. And as we were going down there, Mr. Lucero kept saying, I am your electronic systems technician, and I would like to at least have an opportunity to speak to you about how it could look and what I could do. So we had a big meeting. We brought the tech team, we brought our recording secretaries, we brought our executive cabinet, and Mr. Lucero convinced us that going internally was the way to go. And even went as far as to say we should train multiple people, although he'll oversee, we will have to pay a little bit for the installation. We'll have somebody externally come in, right, and do the install. But we would be training our recording secretaries, some of our admin assistants, a few of us will learn to use the system just as backup. But of course, he would be the main person that would be running the system. But we wanted you to hear from him directly because he did also speak confidently to us and won us all over, so.
I agree. He's very confident, so I respect that, and I would definitely like to see it in action soon.
Thank you. To follow up to what you mentioned, I do want to say that if we go through Swagit, it's like I said, tax-free, and they're based out of Dallas, Texas, and they don't send any staff or anything like that. It's done like virtually. Yeah. So
if there's a problem, then,
exactly, I was about to say that. It's a concern to me because if like you were about to say, there's an issue, there's no one on hand to like fix the problem.
And we're not in the same time zone, so we can't get IT to help us, right?
And I mean, even if you do get someone on the phone, it's not the same compared to having someone in the room just taking care of everything. And that pretty much covers like the quick example I want to get for the video in terms of like what we would be providing.
I think that the San Diego County, or not, the California Board, School Board, when we went to, Sacramento, this is the same system kind of setup that they use. I remember.
Oh, I remember.
the
They
name.
had captions.
Mhm.
So the next steps would be to get feedback from the trustees to develop a plan on purchasing equipment. And then it would be, I also do want to mention that if we do follow through with doing it in-house, and if we do purchase all the equipment, it would be done through our purchase order system. And the next step after that would be to install and set up the equipment and then implementing the whole system, which would include the training of the staff and just making sure.
How long do you anticipate it's being, once approved, it to be set up and ready to go?
So the only part in terms of like the setup would be is like how quick like the company will come up to like install it. So if they do it very quickly, it could be done very quickly. Once they come in and they like install it, the setup itself is just in a day. It would be about a day. I'll take about a day just focusing like a work day, focusing on just making sure the whole thing is set up and it works correctly. And then I would just take about another day, not a whole day, but about like an hour to train anybody who comes to work on it.
Thank you.
That's great. So do you need a vote? No, you don't.
I have
Just
questions.
Yeah, we don't need a vote, but we do need, we would like to answer any questions, but we would love consensus as to if the board is interested in us moving forward.
Is that okay?
Yeah, turn it off. I have a few questions, and thank you for bringing this. So this is very shining you, so I'm glad that we have you on board. So my questions is like, when you mentioned control over versus no control, what do you mean? Can you extend a little bit on that?
So the main thing would be like the customization of the stream itself, like I was showing in the example of the video. Like title screens, banners and stuff, it's more limited, and like the more you want to customize, the more it would be an additional cost.
Okay,
So that's the limitation.
if we decide to go to external,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, the second question, well, I have a few questions that they hopefully can answer. Some of them are already answered, but I want more information on that. If we choose to recommend to purchase that one, these $15,000 includes further training for other people, for other staff members, or for you, or if we will increase it, including software storage needs. If we have to get to a YouTube channel for us to stream and put all of the videos there, is their equipment is mobile, you can take it to another place, or you could just install in here. Because I know several committees, or one committee that is a DPAC is on the library usually. Eventually, we're gonna come back to the library to have those meetings, but just to make it feasible for everyone to see it, like this is our parent committees and they're well attended too, but they have an option to stream it out later. If we can take that equipment there, because the public library has the capacity, but not the equipment capacity, maybe we can take that. I don't know if that's just a question that arises there. It will be streaming for the other meetings that are here on this boardroom. Those are my questions. So.
Dr. Brady, did you want to comment?
I just wanted to jump in and say that I believe that the quote is for all of the equipment, the hard equipment, the software needed to run it, and the installation. The training would be done in-house by Mr. Lucero for everybody, so it would just be staff time that we would need for training, no additional cost. And then he did mention the mobility. We would not, once we install the cameras, we wouldn't be able to move those, but that kind of a camera could be taken with the mixing station to a DPAC, which would be a great benefit, which we wouldn't have if we used the external company.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Bryan, I do have a question. The camera that you said would be installed behind us for the audience and for the speakers, is that one camera that you would be able to to maneuver?
Yes, so all 4 cameras will be PTZ cameras, which means pan tilt zoom, and they can move in any direction you want.
Can I ask a question in regards to the microphone? So right now you're at that microphone and it's not as clear. So can you incorporate being able to provide a separate microphone or something that would be much more easier for the audience to hear from the podium, because we will go back to presentations and so on. Is that something that you can add in there or get a quote?
So to answer that question, the microphone that we see in the middle of the room, that's the microphone that's being used for the live stream, and it's sensitive enough to pick up like all the audio in this room. In terms of this microphone itself, this would be like a separate issue that I can fix on a different time.
Okay, so it won't, if it's there or not, it doesn't really matter because that's what we were picking up on.
Yes, and to actually follow up with that, that microphone would be mounted on the floor, so it would be out of the way.
Okay.
Ms. Gates?
So one of the things I do really appreciate about this is that we keep talking about transparency and accountability. And so putting this out and having a reasonable way to do it matters. Because we want to make sure that our community, parents, students, teachers, staff, everybody has access to what's being discussed and that they feel comfortable being able to do that. So I appreciate that we've looked into this. The one thing that I am also wondering though is, because this is one of the papers that we have to sign at the beginning of the year as parents. How do we verify that we have permission if there's for faces, if there's a camera up here?
Dr. Brady?
I thought she might know.
Right, so our board meetings are held after school hours in the evening mostly, or we have celebration board meetings with students. Those are considered public meetings. So the only thing you have to do is announce that they're being recorded and there's no permission to publish, and they are public and we can record. So that is from our attorneys, and we looked into that again this year and got confirmation because of our promotions. And they were streaming, we were doing the hybrid, and so we asked our attorneys about that, and that's how we were able to verify again. So anything like that is considered a public meeting, and so we just announce it's being recorded for any parent who wishes to maybe remove their child from that,
Or any individual.
or any individual.
Okay, so it would be something that kind of added to the list of things that we read, that Mrs. Stella reads for us.
Yeah, we could, that's a great place to put it. We'll make sure we add that in, once we're up and running.
Mr. Sarga.
One last comment that pops in my head right now. If there's any way to measure the viewers post meeting, how are we gonna measure that? And if this, to measure effectiveness on this, if people is looking afterwards.
If there's a way to measure, like,
Who's in attendance?
The viewers and afterward to measure effectiveness of this streaming way to do
Yeah.
things now.
so when you stream off of YouTube, it keeps record of like all the analytics, and you have all the information. And then in terms of if people are actually viewing the video afterwards, it's like it would be like any other YouTube video. And when you click on it, it tells you how many times it's been used.
Okay.
Thank you. So do you need a consensus then?
If I could just get a head nod, thumbs up, it's okay to move
Yes.
forward.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much.
And the board will be approving this officially through the purchase order system.
Thank you, Brian, for a very informative presentation.
You're welcome.
Item 15A is to amend contract CT 3451 with Rady Children's Hospital San Diego for an increase in the provision of students' health services. Dr. Clark, do you have any comments?
I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that we hope to be fully staffed with our healthcare team as we return to full in-person. It's especially important that we have our school nurse because we are in the last phase of COVID. And we still will continue to be dealing with some of the provisions that we've had to with COVID, the testing, the extra health services at our school sites. And so as such, we would like to keep our differential that we've been in place to address those extra needs. And also, we still continue to have a labor shortage and competition in this field. And so we would like to maintain retention. We will keep this in place until June 2020. And at that point, we will kind of get an analysis and of where we will be in determining our next steps with that. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. 2022. I think COVID, I think 2020.
Yes. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion with discussion, please.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Betancourt Castaneda?
So as you just mentioned, Dr. Kraft, that we will be keeping this until 2022.
Yes.
Will we be reevaluating it at the end to see kind of where we are and where we need to move forward? Because I know we're using one-time money for this, so it's not going to be an ongoing cost. But will that be something that will be taken into consideration?
Yes, that's our plan. We hope, depending on conditions, as we know, there have been a lot of shifting and changing over the last 15 months. And so depending on where we are in June of 2022, we'll reevaluate the program, reevaluate needs, and bring that back to the board with fresh data and current recommendations.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Just quickly, that I think a lot of times we think of the school nurses who may have bandaged our knees when we fell. And our school nurses do everything from checking blood sugar every day to catheterizing some of our students. I mean, there's just a lot that they do. So keeping well-trained individuals who specifically care about our community and our children is really important and something that we should advocate hard for.
I agree. Having the experts with the children is very important because we have very fragile students that need extra care. And all of our students need extra care, but, we just need to make sure that we have the best of the best with our students. So I agree, we need to, have them with our students.
Yes, it always makes me feel that our children are protected by Rady's children, and it's like, that's like the best of the best. So we can take care of things here, their services, but then if something major were to take place, and they could be rushed to Rady's.
It's also important to note that, looking at the ratings component, that we have found that the up-to-date training is critical. I mean, the distinction, of course, is educational training versus medical training. And so we are receiving that with our ratings team. And this is something that we've been fortunate enough to maintain. And so it is in our LCAP. It has been moved to our LCAP so that it takes off, alleviates in terms of the general fund. And again, at the end of the year, we'll evaluate, but of course, as the board has directed, we will continue to focus on our safety and our students first. And so at that point, we'll provide the board a recommendation.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Ms. Betancourt Castañeda and a second from Ms. Gates to amend the contract with Rady's Children's Hospital. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 15B is to approve contract CT 3854, Memorandum of Understanding with San Diego County Superintendent of Schools to provide a multilingual California project grant for the National School District for the 2021-2022 school year. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I do second it.
Any discussion? I just do want to call attention to the fact that this is a revenue.
Right.
This is no financial impact to the district, it's a revenue account, so.
And I wanted to also bring to the board's attention that the grant criteria requires that we bring it back each year in order to get the revenue, and that there may be, hopefully, increase of funds, and then we might bring back an amendment. Since it's a state grant, we don't really know until the fall, but we'll keep you abreast. And it does provide services as well as funding for English learner training, connections with parents and family. It's a very rich grant, and that's one of our main focus in the district, as you see with our Goal 1 and our LCAP. So we're very fortunate to be recipient of this.
Just a point of clarification, this is for all schools, right? Not only for the dual language, right?
Correct. It's for the entire district.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I have a motion by Ms. Betancourt Castañeda and a second by Ms. Lizárraga. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 15C is to approve contract CT 3861 with T-Mobile for internet service for hotspot devices for the 2021-2022 school year. Do I have a motion
I would like to make that motion.
and a second?
I will second.
Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Betancourt Castañeda.
Out of all the devices, like it says 657, how many are we utilizing? Is it to the full capacity, or what is it that we're cut off?
We have fluctuations, but we saw the fluctuations were more oriented towards increase during the pandemic. And so we actually had to bring an amendment at one point to increase the number of devices. And the board approved the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, funds. Then there was an allocation of money for these devices in that, because it's part of our recovery plan, our accelerated of learning, so that we can ensure 24/7 access and kind of expand learning beyond the brick and mortar. And this is we did want a contract for the year because we wanted to ensure continuity, and that's something that we were able to get a discount with the vendor to do that. It's our short-term solution through this year to provide that for our students because we want to make sure connectivity is consistent. We are exploring business services in partnership with educational services. Is exploring an LTE network. We'll be exploring that this year, throughout the year, and hopefully that will be more of our long-term solution as we gather more information on that.
I think it's very important that we keep, the children have those hotspots because they need to be able to do their research and Google things and things. So, yes, Ms. Gates, or Ms. Lizarraga.
You go first. Go ahead.
Is there any reason why we choose T-Mobile versus Verizon Wireless as vendors?
They actually provided us with best service, I'll be honest, and the most competitive rate. We had an established, they've been quite good with national. They were able to secure hotspots at the very beginning of the pandemic, where others were not able to. They really did help us. The rates are pretty comparable across all, of the vendors that provided the T-Mobile. We already established, we already have the systems. It's already integrated with our technology system, and so we opted to stay with it.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted the audience to know.
Yeah, and we did start our hotspots with part Kahoot and part,
Kajit.
I'm sorry, Kajit.
It didn't work.
You know what you're doing.
We had some with Kajit, we started piloting, and then we introduced T-Mobile, so we went through that process last year, and then when that was before the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, we had some problems with the Kajit, and we transitioned away from those into all T-Mobile, but we were able to get up and running as the kids came back from the spring break and we're staying home for distance learning. Every one of our students was connected, unlike some other districts that have like a 6-month waiting period. So this is a continuation of that partnership with T-Mobile.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Gates?
A long time ago, many years, I sat in Nathan Fletcher's office when he was in Sacramento, and one of the things I remember him saying was, we need a computer in every kid's hand. And I was like, yeah, but right now we need paper. Like at that point, because we were fighting that fight. We were losing money in schools, and it was like showing up. But we do need a computer in every kid's hand. It is where we've been heading. It's where we've been. It's where we are going to stay. So I'm thankful that you all made it a priority to make sure that our students had that access. And yeah, the pandemic kind of feels like it forced us to, fast forward, a ton. But I also know that you were like, that was your next step anyway. I am wondering, not for this next year, because I know we're still praying our way out of this COVID-19, and we still have a lot around the globe who are not even close to being out of it. But after this, like down the road, as somebody who sees students in the classroom and knows that when they take them home, that is where we have a lot of breakage, that is where we have a lot of, my sister got mad and threw it, a lot of those things. It's just encouraging us to think through what needs are, in like real needs, for having computer access, for having the hotspots. I don't want to take them away. That's not what I'm saying. And for some of our families, we have so much that we're trying to put in place for contact. Their child's hotspot might be the only thing that's keeping them in contact. So how do we do a good job of evaluating, as we come out of the pandemic, what our computer needs are for our students, what our hotspot needs are for our students and our families? I don't have an answer to that question. That's above my pay grade, but I really want to take it seriously and not just be thinking about today. I do want to think about what that means for our families down the road Because this is not, it's not a cheap thing, but it's right to do.
Well, I think we're headed in the right direction. I think that this agenda item shows that we're committed to keeping them with the devices.
Absolutely.
Ms. Bettencourt Castaneda first, and
Sorry.
then Dr. Craig.
Which is what I was gonna say is keeping our kids connected is very important. Hearing that not all districts have that opportunity. Our kids from day one have had the technology and for the most part, the connectivity, because we already had started that pilot program. So, we had the upper hand in our community, in our district. So, and that's, thanks to all of our staff that had put in all that work. I don't foresee us taking it away. We're not gonna go backwards, we're gonna keep moving forward. So for us to not, think forward as in to continue this program, I think that would be kind of doing a disservice to our students in our community. It's wonderful that we had all this available to our students, and I think everybody who had it, hand in it, because it wasn't easy. I've seen the distributions and the stresses that things were caught up because something happened, and I remember, Dr. Kraft knows exactly what I'm talking about. But again, we made it happen, and I can say not every district can even say that they were in the situation we're in because we thought ahead.
So to answer your question, Trustee Gates, we are, Dr. O'Connor is a data, very in love with data. And so we are doing, we're actually monitoring data, we're collecting it. We're actually looking at doing another hotspot analysis post-pandemic and, the heat map. And so we're looking at determining where we are outside of the, now that we're, at least in our area, coming out of this end of the pandemic and what our needs are going to be. And so we'll be spending time this year exploring that, exploring what other, I think you were alluding to, structures and systems to ensure the longevity of this and to ensure the understanding of what a wonderful opportunity this is. And so we're going to be exploring those types of protocols. And I think the other piece of this that was very clear, and I think that is what Trustee Bettencourt Castaneda is alluding to, is that we were very fortunate to be able to provide that equity for our families. And, with our earlier discussion, we found that's probably what accelerated the most in the pandemic, that there was a digital divide. And in this day and age, digital access is intertwined in terms of equity, and I think we spoke to that. So we definitely saw that, and we are responding to it in the actions that we're taking moving forward coming out.
No, that's, like I said, I just don't want it to turn into, I wouldn't want it to be something that we weren't looking forward. I don't, so much of this last year has been emergency. And this is something that if we have some remnants and some things that we've learned, one of the things that we have learned is if our students can have access at home, it's a game changer. And it's a game changer not just for them, but for families as well. So, yeah.
Well, not to toot our own horn or anything, but we were very proactive where other districts had to be reactive. So I think we were ahead of the game. Dr. Kraft, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So is there a system, if a child, one of our students is moving away and has one of our devices, is there a system in place where that child will return the device to us?
So if students, do normal checkout, we've got an exit protocol where our library and media specialists, they will check it in. We now have asset management system that Dr. O'Connor established across the district. So we can pretty much track any device, any place. For most part, we've had that and we've had it returned and no issues. If, for for some reason there was, rapid and we were unable to retrieve the device, we do have the capability of pretty much making it a brick dead. And so, but overall, our system of return and our protocol for checking in, checking out, and tracking the asset, which is the device and the hotspot, has been working.
Thank you very much. Dr. Brady, did you have another comment?
I just wanted to say, back before I was a superintendent in the National School District, I was asked a question. If the city and the school district had a common goal, what would be a way that you would work on that goal together? And what I mentioned in my interview was that I would like to see, the city and the school district look at connectivity for National City as a whole, that we should blanket our city in Wi-Fi. And so we've never let go of that dream as a school district. It's taken some twists and turns. There's things like public records and who's going to maintain all of the mobile hotspots and things that you would have to put around the city. But since the pandemic, so I guess what I'm going to say is we did a lot of proactive things, not to toot our own horns, but under Dr. Kraft's leadership, Dr. O'Connor did a heat map of every single student, so we could tell where students in what neighborhoods needed the most connectivity. And then we took our Cox to compete, and instead of having everybody come to the district office, we put the events out in the neighborhoods that needed the most connectivity. Fast forward to the pandemic hit, we already had a lot of things in motion, we were able to get everybody connected quickly. But we all know that a hotspot doesn't provide the best internet access. It doesn't allow you to download rich media files and things like that. So we want to continue the dream moving forward of getting our students connected with better, richer internet and our families. And so that's why Mr. Evanesians has already had a meeting on establishing an LTE network, which is like you get internet through your cell phone. It's cell phone internet. And we could put towers on each of our schools and create a network across the entire school district. So families, rather than connecting through a hotspot, could connect potentially through this tower. We may still need some hotspots depending on where you live, but that will get us closer. We also know Cisco did some unique things with school districts to provide citywide or school district-wide internet access. So we're looking at that, compare it to the LTE network to see what the best solution is. The reason we're bringing this item forward is we know that that's going to take a little time, but we plan to work on that over this next year. And if we can involve the city with it, even better, because we know it's not just our students. Having the devices in all of our homes and having our families join our meetings from their student devices has really elevated parents being able to connect and come to meetings. And so there's a greater need for internet for more things than just even participating in schoolwork. So we want to open that door for everybody, for all of our families. And so we're going to continue to work on it as a school district. And if we can convince the city to join us in this effort, we'd like to do that as well and be a destination city, a destination school district where you come and you're connected.
Great. Thank you very much for the rich discussion. We have a motion by Ms. Gates and a second by Ms. Betancourt Castaneda to approve the contract with T-Mobile for internet services for hotspot devices for the 2021-2022 school year. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 16A is to approve consultant contract CT3847 with Swing Education to provide substitutes and tutoring services for the 2021-2022 school year. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve with discussion, please.
And do I have a second?
I second it with a question.
Ms. Betancourt Castaneda?
I just wanted to make sure, to clarify, I know that in the body of the item, it does say that the funds will be used, the expanded learning opportunity grant funds. But on the financial impact, it doesn't state. We are going to use the grant money, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so this is one-time money.
That's correct.
So we'll
Ms.
take
So
Lucero?
just a question about why swing education over others?
So we've had a partnership with Swing. We've been successful with the services, and what we look for is continuity to ensure that when we ask our teachers to do sub-plans, that somebody shows up and that they're able to get the training because we did have issues prior to bringing in this vendor where we would have teachers all prepared to learn something that they would need to implement. A sub wouldn't show up, and so there was a lot of waste. And so we did partner with Swing, and we implemented it year one to see the success, and we've been pleased with the consistency that we've been able to provide in terms of sub-release. And we've only used it for professional development. This year was a little bit different because of the pandemic. And so we did add the component of tutoring in there because we wanted to be able to provide academic supports with our students. So we did use that. And again, we had that consistency and reliability.
All right, thank you. I read that too for the touring part.
Ms. Betancourt Castaneda?
So you mentioned we've had a lot of good consistency, and have we run into where there's a shortage with Swing, where we would have to then maybe contract into, or have other options available to us?
So we have run into the same thing during the pandemic. It was very difficult to have substitutes overall with Swing and as well. So we have not had the opportunity to explore other companies since we have such a good relationship with Swing. They do really come through for the most part. Like I said, the pandemic year was a bit difficult. Towards the end, it got to be more difficult that they weren't able to provide all the subs needed. But I would say that they are very reliable for us. And so therefore, we would like to continue with Swing.
So, is there a big pool of subs with them, or how do we know that we're gonna have that accessibility? Because come next year, if we have a lot of training, will we still have the ability to have our classrooms covered?
So they have been able to give us a big pool in the past. We've been able to pull out all grade levels in the whole district and provide that support for them, where we actually pull them all out and that we have subs there. So in the past, they have been, and they also, like I said, were able to provide the tutors that we needed for our academic supports program. So I do believe that definitely we would be able to continue with them, and we would be able to provide the services for professional development that's needed.
Dr. Brady?
Yes, I just wanted to add that this won't replace our regular sub system, as you'll see on the next item for Dr. Hernandez. This is just to ensure that we can, if we're bringing in someone for professional development and half the teachers can't come, then that you lose a lot of money. So with the presenter, so this is a way of being able to offset that and ensure that we can have good attendance at those trainings.
It's also extremely frustrating to be the teacher who has to pick up everything from someone else. So I'm glad that we do have a backup system because substitutes are hard to find and reliable substitutes are harder to find.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Betancourt Castaneda and a second by Ms. Lizarraga to approve consultant contract with Swing Education. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 16B is to approve increased rate of pay for substitute teachers. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve with discussion, please.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Betancourt Castaneda?
Just out of curiosity, how does our district compare to other districts that are at this rate?
So I think I would have said to you, if it was probably a year ago, I would have thought we were doing very well compared to other districts. I think once the pandemic hit and the need for substitute rose at such an extreme rate, we were probably one at the bottom again. And so that's why we wanted to bring this forward, because the substitutes that of course we need are for our sick, our personal. We project that we will still need a high level of substitute because we're still in a semi-COVID-19 pandemic. And so I think that's why we're bringing these rates to you, because we do feel that that's what's going to retain our substitutes. Substitutes that had been with us for years, I mean, they went to our neighboring districts where they were paying over $100 more than we were. And so we need to be competitive. They want to be here with us, but we also understand that if they're going to pay higher, they will go to those school districts.
Thank you.
Back to wanting to keep those reliable substitutes and,
Right.
and yeah. It's always an issue, and that was actually, I had just written down comparables because it matters who we have in front of our kids. I know this is a side issue, so I'm curious as to what we do to train subs, but that doesn't have to be a now thing because we're on this. So another time.
I have a motion by Ms. Bettencourt Castaneda and a second by Ms. Gates to approve the increase of pay for the substitute teachers. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 17A is a presentation and acceptance of the GASB number 75 actuarial valuation report for the National School District other post-employment benefits. Mr. Avanesians?
Thank you. So GASB number 75 is an opinion. So GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They set the rules for accounting for public entities. In June of 2015, they passed GASB 75, which requires us to report, to do a study and report out the cost of our other post-employment benefits. So for us, that's the health and welfare of our retirees, the cost that the district incurs and is likely to incur in the future. And tonight we have Sandy DeCall from Nyhart to present the study that they did for us. And this study will be included in our audit report. Every year we must include in our audit, and Sandy's here to present and answer any questions. Sandy.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Sandy, as mentioned, and I work with John and Megan over at Nyhart Consulting. I was brought on recently to the Nyhart team as the consultant out here in California, really to be a local contact on the ground here for the California clients. And I'm really excited to present these results and hopefully work with you in the future. As mentioned, I'll be going over the GASB 75 results for fiscal 2021. And this is for the district's health benefits plan, or the OPEB plan, as I'll probably refer to it throughout the presentation. I will go through these prepared slides, but please stop me with any questions or comments as I go, for sure. Okay. So this slide gives a little bit of an overview as to what I'll be discussing today. I'll start off going over the valuation process, our modeling, and then I will jump right into the evaluation results and end with a little discussion on how the district can manage risks associated with this benefits plan. Starting off, I'll go through our valuation process, and typically for any GASB 75 valuation, we'll start by collecting data. We pull a number of data sources, plan information, enrollment information, premium rates, census data. We take all that, we program that into our actuarial model to come up with projected contributions that the district is expected to pay for all future years. At that point, we then discount these projected cash flows to the measurement date. And we allocate that present value to past service, future service, and current service using the actuarial cost method. There's one little nuance with the GASB 75 reporting, that this valuation process is what we follow for full GASB valuations, which are required every other year. In those middle years, we do something called an interim valuation or a roll forward valuation, where we kind of adjust step number 1, where we collect some data, but we don't update things like the census data. So it's a more simplified approach in those middle years. The GASB 75 valuation we're talking about is a roll forward valuation, so that's simplified approach. Okay, so now I'm going to go through some changes since the last GASB 75 valuation. That was for fiscal year end 2020, and that was a full valuation. So now we're in that interim roll forward valuation. And that valuation is using a measurement date of December 31st, 2020. So there's a little 6-month lag between the measurement date and that fiscal year end date. Just consistent with how the GASB reporting has been done in the past. And basically what we did to update the valuation was we first confirmed that there were no plan benefit changes. And at that point, we updated some assumptions. The first assumption we updated was for the discount rate. The discount rate is 2.12% as of December 31st, 2020. This was a decrease from the prior valuation where it was 2.92%. And this is a pretty meaningful assumption as it comes to the GASB 75 valuation, which I will go over a little bit later in the presentation. And then we also updated medical trends to be based on actual premium rate increases, just to make sure we're using the most up-to-date premium information. Okay, now this slide goes through our modeling a little bit. There are really 4 main pieces to our model. I've kind of touched on a few of them already. The first is that healthcare trend, or basically the amount which we believe that healthcare costs are going to increase in the future. Our assumption is 6% per year, scaling down to 5% in 3 years. And one thing to note is that in this interim valuation, the healthcare trend for that first year is the actual trend that we saw by looking at the premiums last year and this year. The second piece of the valuation that we put into our model is that discount rate. I mentioned it's 2.12%, which is a decrease from prior years. And this really drives the results. In general, a lower discount rate will lead to a higher OPEB liability, and that's something that we can discuss a little bit later on when we're talking about the risks. And then on the right-hand side of the page, we have pretty much all the information as it relates to the benefit provisions. So what the district is promised to pay, and also the eligibility for someone to be eligible for this benefit in the future. All that goes into our model and spits out the results that we need that also are in line with the GASB 75 reporting. Okay, so now we have the premiums laid out. These are the healthcare premiums for the plans that underlie the OPEB benefits. Really, there wasn't much of a change from the 2020 premiums to the 2021. And so the results were, it didn't really change liability too much. We did notice that the premiums were slightly lower than our expectations, which led to a decrease in liability. Now, the decrease in discount rate led to, unfortunately, a much larger increase in liability, so that's why you'll see from year to year there was an increase in that GASB 75 liability. So at this point, I've gone over pretty much our process and all the data that goes into it. I'll pause for any questions or comments on any of the above. Okay, great. Then I will jump right into the valuation results. And I'll start off with the projected pay-as-you-go costs. So this is basically laying out the district's projected costs on a year-by-year basis, split up by the current retirees in the plan and also future retirees. So you see the current is in red there and the future is in gray. See that detail on the graph. And on the bottom, we have a table kind of laying out the amounts per year. And looking at it, you'll see that the district is projected to pay about $500,000 up to approximately $2 million per year for future years. If you add all those up, the total district projected contributions are $50.4 million. Now I'll break down this number a tiny bit more on this next slide, where we kind of get to the meat of the GASB 75 results. So we come up with that total $50.4 million of projected district contributions, and then we present value that using a discount rate of 2.12%, giving us the present value of $37.1 million. At that point, we then kind of allocate that present value between future service accruals, current service accruals, and past service accruals, or the accrued liability, which is the $15.5 million and is the number that GASB requires to be reported from the district each year over on that right-hand side. So that pie chart really kind of splits up what that present value looks like, and the main number, I'll say, is this $15.5 million here that we use for GASB. And lastly, under GASB 75, the district is required to report a balance sheet liability. Since the district does not fund the OPEB liability, the balance sheet liability is the same as the OPEB liability of $15.5 million. This is an increase of about $1.5 million from the prior year, and that's really just due to that decrease in the discount rate causing the OPEB liability to increase. a little bit, tricky going back and forth. So at that point, I've gone through all of the evaluation results, and now I'll turn the conversation over just to how to manage risks associated with this benefit plan. Now, since this is related to healthcare costs and premium rates and discount rates, this liability can be quite risky. So there are a number of options the district can look into to kind of manage that risk. As I mentioned, premium rate increases and healthcare trends are very dependent on this liability. And so keeping an eye on them is one way to manage that risk. There's also shifting costs to retirees and a long-term projection of liabilities, just to kind of get heads up on where your OPEB liability is going, what your benefit payments look like for future years. And then there's one more item that I wanted to kind of go into a little bit more detail, which is this fourth item, establishing a trust for that OPEB liability. Now, the district hasn't funded the OPEB benefits, but I think that there could be some benefits in doing so that could lead to lower costs, which I will go through on this slide here. Pre-funding in an OPEB trust is something that a lot of our California districts have looked into, just because there's a lot of advantages, and if you have it in the budget, then it could be worth it. Under GASB 75 reporting, if you are pre-funding your OPEB liabilities, you can use that long-term expected rate of return on the assets as part of your discount rate calculation. So basically, your long-term rate of return on assets might be somewhere in the 6 to 7% range, as opposed to the 2.12%, which is what we're using for the GASB 75 valuation. And by doing that, you would therefore lower your OPEB liability. You can see that on this middle chart right here, that using a 6% discount rate would lower your liability to probably about 12 million versus the 15.5 that you're at now. So that is one of the benefits of pre-funding the OPEB liability. A softer benefit is just having that fund there in case something happens, and you have that kind of cushion of cash just in case you need to use that to pay OPEB benefits and maybe not fund in the future. The only real cons to funding the OPEB trust is, like I said, just budgetary restraints and flexibility on that money, just because once you do fund it in the OPEB trust, it must be used to pay benefit payments for the OPEB plan. So that's really all I had in terms of prepared remarks, but I would be happy to take any questions or comments, and if there's any interest in pre-funding, then we could also look into some modeling scenarios to see if that's something you guys are interested in.
I have a question, but I believe it's for Mr. Almasians. So how has the district have we been having the study, has it been conducted every year or every other year here in the district? Do you know that?
This study is done every year. Every other year, it's done with new information. So they update the employee information and whatnot, but it's done every year. It's required by law. We have to have it done by a certain period to include it in our audit report, and it has to be disclosed to the public. So
how has the district been funding the post-employment benefits for our district?
So right now we pay as we go, meaning it comes out of our operating budget. So, and it's all unrestricted. So every dollar we pay is part of our unrestricted budget. That is how we pay it right now.
And if we were to establish a trust, then it wouldn't be unrestricted money?
The idea with the trust would be you start funding the trust, and eventually gets to the point where the returns on the trust will start funding the premiums, and you can alleviate the burden on the unrestricted general fund and have the trust start paying those premiums.
I see. Okay. Ms. Gates?
It sounds kind of like the idea of when somebody sets up a scholarship at the college level. You start with, you put $10,000 in, or it has to get to a certain point, and then the interest starts helping you out. But you have to have a certain amount set up in the first place in order to get going. Okay. And that, I'm assuming, is where your discussion on the pre-funding the trust can have an impact on us when it comes to budget strains.
Correct. It is something that we could look at to uniquely help with that part of the unrestricted spending for the OPEB. There is really no other source of funding to pay for those costs. It must come out of unrestricted funds. Half the districts in San Diego County have set up trusts to start funding their OPEB liabilities. It is pretty much becoming common practice. And I like to look at it like renting versus buying. Right now, we're kind of renting. We pay as we go. So if we start funding this asset that can eventually pay, we won't have this liability occurring any longer. It will definitely help the unrestricted balance of our general fund. We're looking at anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million, $500,000 to $1 million in costs every year.
So it is that, like, to continue with your analogy, it is that idea of it's hard coming up with the down payment on the house, but now you're paying into what's yours, and often you aren't ending up hoping every month that the things will be there.
Correct.
Okay.
So do we have the funds to fund the trust?
That all depends on what level we want to fund it at, where we want to start, where we want to fund it every year to get to what point. And that would be studies that we would have to do to see what kind of funding we would have to do to get the results we want in the time we want.
Ms. Betancourt Castañeda?
Which is the question I was gonna ask is what would we need to be able to get to that level? Like, what are the trends of how much we've been spending from the previous years and so on and so forth? Because it would make more sense for us to be able to kind of pay ourselves back with the money that we just invested in it, you know? Did you mentioned 500,000 to $1 million per year? That's what we're paying out, or?
Yes.
Okay, so,
It's entirely based on the population that we serve in terms of our retirees, their demographics, and what they qualify for. It's hard to predict. That's one of the reasons we have this report. We budget our OPEB based on these reports, and it fluctuates.
and it impacts us when we have a influx of retirees. So this past year is probably not the best example to use.
Correct.
That's
The one thing that we will experience is increased costs.
Ms. Gates?
Now, will we be paying both at the same time? It's because the other thing about a trust is you have to get enough cash in there to actually then start having a payout. So will we be paying into both things at the same time?
We will, until the point where we don't have to pay as we go. And that's something we'll rely on NIHART for to project what makes sense in terms of funding a trust and at what point can we expect to see returns.
Okay, so we don't currently have a projection on the length of time that
Yes.
it will take.
Yes, it really will depend on a number of factors that we would need to kind of build out in sort of a larger scale project to kind of see what funding levels would kind of get you there at what point in time. So you can kind of do it either which way. You want to fund this much, and at this point in time, you'll get to that level where you have the switch, or you want to get to the switch by 10 years from now, and then what amount do you need to fund to get there? So we can kind of do it either which way, but there's a number of factors, including rate of return that's used and the investment strategy that would all kind of go into a funding policy at the end of the day. And then that would be used to kind of do this GASB 75 valuation and also help you in the future with how much contributions will be required and when you'll see that drop off.
And is there a financial impact in establishing the trust?
The only financial impact would be how much you want to fund the trust. That would be money that does come from the unrestricted general fund, very likely from the ending fund balance, or if it's something that we build into the operating expenses for an annual basis. But that would be the cost of establishing a trust. And normally when you do establish a trust, there are some costs. It depends on the fiduciary we use, depending on how they fund it. And there's many different models of how we could fund it, but that would be something we ask the vendors to disclose up front. What is the cost of establishing a trust? There's a lot of flexible options as well.
if we establish a trust, then it becomes restricted?
Yes, it becomes a irrevocable trust for the sole purpose of this funding.
I think I think we need the trust myself.
It is a cost that is not going away. This cost will be with us forever. So eventually the idea would be that it will no longer be something that is a burden to the general fund, meaning operating expenses will no longer include an OPEB expense. It will be, the trust will just generate the revenue to pay for these costs.
Okay. Ms. Betancourt Castaneda?
Would we be able to use any of our one-time monies to establish the trust?
It's hard to say right now. I would have to explore that, but that is something we could look into.
Ms. Gates?
So it's essentially that older saying that we hear about making your money work for you is what you're trying to encourage us to do here, rather than just constantly paying, but to actually make the money that we have work more efficiently for us for that long term.
Correct. It's an expense that, like I said, it's not going away. It will never go away. If there's a solution to it, that we can help the district with those costs down the line, and it's not something that will happen in 5 years where we could pay for 100% of the cost. But eventually, we will no longer have this cost on our unrestricted if we start funding the trust. And if it gets to the point it's fully funded, we can have 100% shift of that cost to the trust.
So the sooner we begin, the better.
Correct.
Ms. Lizarraga?
Thank you. This will be, I like the idea. I support the idea of having this fund, especially with, because it will help compromise the general funding. But my question is, are you gonna come, what is the next step if we accept this proposal? So you're gonna come up with the board again with several models of it?
So the next step would be, we would engage NIHART to do a study on what funding levels we would need. And then we would look at that study and then engage after that companies that provide trust options. So something like, there's private companies, there's public companies, there's many options. So we would go to the market and see what are the options available to us to start a trust, what are the rates, what kind of investment returns are out there, and look at those options. It'd likely be a request for qualifications. And then once we have that, we will come back to the board and present the options that are available and what levels of funding we're looking at.
So, so NIHAR will cost, it has some cost, but it will look forward to looking for more choices. That's what it is.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
The cost for the study is not part of our current agreement with NIHART, so that would be a new agreement with NIHART to conduct that study.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing no further questions, then I will, do we have a motion to move forward with this trust? Is that with the trust? No?
Just
With-
It's just the accept the report.
But just accept the report? Okay.
Yeah, and then
So
we
there's
have
no motion.
consensus, we'll bring it back for vote.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the actual
Do we need-
valuation report.
Accepting the existing report.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay.
Mrs. Zaraga, I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Betancourt Castaneda and a second by Ms. Lizarraga to accept this report. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Item 17B is to approve contract CT 3651 for bid number 18-19-193 to Diamond Jack Enterprises for fresh fruits and vegetables. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
I will second.
Is there any discussion?
Just curious about waste. Always curious about, I know that, that we do have some composting programs going on, which is great, but it'd be nice if the kids ate the fresh fruits and vegetables first. Do we have any idea about, and again, we've got our year. I don't even know what to do with this year sometimes when we're asking these questions, but how are we monitoring the actual purchase and use of our fresh fruits and vegetables with our kids?
Dr. Brady?
Well, I'll start and then I'll let Mr. Evanesians jump in because I know he's new and he wasn't here pre-pandemic. So I do not to toot our own
Don't make it up,
horn.
yeah.
But one of the things we're proud about is being able to offer fresh fruits and vegetables through the salad bar for our students. And the way that Mr. Hansen has it set up is as a student comes through the salad bar, they only take what they feel like they're going to eat. But if they're still hungry, they can go back and they can get more. So that's one way we try to control for waste. A second way that we try to control for waste is actually cutting the fruits and vegetables. So unlike the pandemic where you got a bag of apples, you had to eat the whole apple, we can cut the fruit up and you can just take some slices instead of taking the whole fruit. That cuts down on that food waste. And then the third way is that we've actually engaged our students to do food audits and food waste audits. And we've had them present at the board level on what better ways we can educate students about not taking more than they want to eat to control the food waste. And then of course we have the composting programs. So those are some of the ways I know about. I don't know if there's anything else that Mr. Hansen has shared with you in your short time here that you wanted to add to that too, Mr. Evanescence.
He hasn't specific to our district, but generally what happens is there's a production sheet that's created. So whatever is offered is recorded, and then at the end, they record what is left, and then the difference is what has been served. In terms of accounting for waste is not part of that, but we could definitely explore what it would take to account for waste.
I know that because when you serve that whole apple or the whole orange, you can grab sometimes they get left and somebody else can grab one because they didn't think to grab it. And so I know that is one of those things, but all too often we see stuff thrown out and to just want to be as responsible while offering these good choices to the kids. And so I was just wondering how that's working for us. Thank you.
And I'd be happy to, when we're back in session with our kids full time and we get back to those audits, I'd be happy to invite the board to join me at any of the schools and hear from the kids about how that's a big thing on kids' minds right now. They don't like to see the waste. So we have share tables and different things, but there are a lot of rules with food once a student takes it into their hands. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Gates and a second by Ms. Betancourt Castañeda to approve contract CT 3651 with Diamond Jack. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 17C is to approve contract CT 3849 with Dennis Woolever Kelly, Attorneys at Law, or DWK, to provide bond and disclosure counsel legal services. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
In a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 17D, approve contract CT 3850 with Dennis Woolever and Kelly, Attorneys at Law, for legal services. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve.
And is there a second?
I second it. Mrs. Wright.
Is there any discussions?
Just this is new for me, so how does this one differ from the one before it when it's the same? Like, what are we covering differently?
So 17C was specific to our bond. DWK was original bond counsel, and we'd like to continue with them for specific to bond counsel.
Yeah.
That's just a different practice area of their fund. And we would use Fund 21 to pay for those costs as well. Plus they do our disclosures. We have to do annual disclosures for our bondholders. So they are responsible for generating those reports.
Okay, but for this one, it simply says legal services for D.
17D, they would provide just general legal services, so we would consult them on any kind of general legal, special education, which is one of their specialties.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Betancourt Castaneda and a second by Ms. Lucero. Please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 17E is to approve contract CT 3844 with Fagan, Friedman, and Bullfrost LLP for legal services. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 17F is to accept gifts. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to accept gifts.
And do I have a second?
I second, Lucero.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, please vote.
Item passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Item 18 is board communications. Mrs. Zaraga?
Thank you, President Dalla. I just wanted to show my happiness about the streaming options that we have. And that create more opportunities for parents and all the families that want to be involved in this public system of education. And thank you for the presentation. I will be happy for you and for all the staff that it will require less opportunities for them. So far that I have hopefully Miss Sarmiento is okay because we've been absent, so we wonder where she is now, but hopefully she's okay, and then hopefully see each other like together in this board again. And I'm happy to be on the same level now that we can face the audience and we'll moving forward with this. And other than that, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Gates.
I want to say thank you for answering so many questions tonight. Again, I feel like every time we're up here is a learning experience. I am going to throw out, maybe I should whisper, it's 14 days until prep week starts. So that's, 14, 2 weeks from today. And students, we're looking forward to having you come back. So thank you for an informative working.
Thank you, Ms. Betancourt Castaneda.
Thank you. I also would like to thank our presenters tonight and Bryan for your expertise. I'm looking forward to having I guess I am, but I'm not. I'm looking forward to having the equipment set up, but I'm not the type of person that wants to be in front of the camera. So that part I'm not really excited about, but I do love the fact that we're going to be very transparent with our community. Because it is very difficult for some of our families to be able to participate, and it's important that we have that capability and accessibility to our community. So, and from that aspect, I'm very, very excited. Yeah, I just wanted to see if I could be trained on that. That looks like a neat system, but I'm just saying. But with that, I just wanted to say have a wonderful rest of the vacation. Although I wasn't going to say in days, but I guess it's closer than what I thought. I do look forward to seeing the students on campuses. I know I had an opportunity to go while we were had the hybrid students at our school sites, but I do want to see full classes to their capacity that we can, because it is important that our students have the ability to learn in person, that our capable of. So, are capable of being able to be there with us. So, but not just our students, having all of our staff back to be able to see it in person, because it has been, challenging. Just speaking for me, my case, my kids, they're a little bit bigger, but some of our children are really small. So those families that only got to speak to small children, now to be able to be with adults. So that's a big difference. So, but I do look forward to a new school year, a new different school year. But I'm excited. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Albanesian?
I just want to thank the transportation department. They have been working throughout the summer. We do have some students that they are transporting from non-public schools, so they haven't stopped. And they will be back when school starts as well. So I just want to acknowledge that the work they've been doing all summer.
Thank you. Dr. Hernandez?
And yes, just to add to Mr. Albanesian's, we also have our CNS team continuously working, and we do have to say CNS has non-stop, just the whole year and a half. So thank them always. Can't say enough about them. And just everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Dr. Pratt?
Well, then I have to acknowledge the technology team.
Right, of course.
Who has been working throughout the pandemic, as well as almost everybody in educational services. And I also wanted to share with the board that in May, we had sent out a survey to our families indicating if they were interested, to let us know if they were interested, if we were able to offer an option for independent study in the next year's school year. And we did that because we have a very tight time frame with our schedules, a modified traditional. We knew that legislation would be coming out based on this independent study that would have some modifications. However, it wasn't going to come out until June 30th. It ended up not coming out to July 4th. And so we wanted to be prepared. So we did begin planning based off our current board policy and administrative regulation. And then, as I shared on July 4th, new legislation came out that influenced this independent study. And the provisions do impact our program delivery, and legislation does encourage us to look for partnerships with the county office if we are challenged to meet these new provisions. And so I have been in contact with the county office, and I will be getting some information. I just heard back from them. They're actually working on it and looking at a plan to support districts in the county that may need it. And then I will also be inviting parents to an informational meeting and giving them an update of what that means for the next school year. And as soon as I get more clarity, of course, I will update the board. And finally, I want to share, I am very excited to see our kids and our staff come back.
Thank you. Dr. Brady?
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Bryan, for your presentation tonight. That was very informative. Thank you for all the research you did ahead of time to come up with a solution and then to come and present it to the board. And I look forward to seeing it in action. So thank you for that. Dr. Hernandez, you mentioned CNS, so I can't let this opportunity go by without saying a very happy birthday to Miss Mona Rivada. Her birthday is this week, tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Moni.
I believe it's tomorrow.
Early birthday.
Yes, and then I just want to remind the board that on the 21st, Wednesday, the 21st, we will be having our Welcome Back kickoff event. And we will have all of the board there to greet all of our employees and some of our retired employees and some VIPs from our city at Lincoln Acres, 8:30. So we'll be there from about 8:30 to 11:30. So just mark your calendars. It's coming up fast, as you mentioned. And so make sure you're all ready to go as we kick off a new school year and wish National School District 150th birthday.
Thank you. I just want to thank Bryan again for his presentation. It was very informative, and I'm glad that you are proactive and looking these things up for the district and for the betterment of everyone. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome.
And I just wanted to mention too that on, I believe it was Wednesday the 30th, it was Sandy Ellis's last day here at the district. And I just have to say that I don't know this district without Sandy Ellis. When I came, she was already here. That lady touched the lives of every single employee, every single person who walked into this district. She was the first contact they would have after we hired them. And I know that it's the end of an era, and it won't be the same. I know that the Human Resources Department is going to miss her very much. And I just want to say congratulations, mi amiga.
Congratulations, Sandy.
Yes. Good night to all. Meeting adjourned.